Hi, we're going to talk about the integumentary system today, which will include skin, hair, and nails. So, let's talk about function before we get into the anatomy and physiology, or the anatomy part of it. So, skin acts as a barrier for our body. It's going to keep things that are supposed to stay in, and it'll keep things that are out. It offers protection from UV light. It helps us keep out bacteria from our bodies. It also secretes waste that we don't want in our bodies any longer, and it offers that continuity of our skin to help create that barrier as well. It also regulates body temperature, and this kind of gets into one of the lower topics that I have here, but what it does is it will change the amount of blood that is in the skin. At a certain time, it will dilate and constrict capillaries to allow us to change the blood amount in our skin and then regulate the body temperature. It can also act as a natural cooling system with allowing sweat to come out of the skin, and then that air hits the sweat and cools our body temperature. It also has a sensory function. It's able to sense pain and also sense temperature changes, and that allows us to adjust to that stimulus. It also will create vitamin D. By taking in UV light, we're able to create vitamin D, which is very important when we're dealing with the absorption of calcium. And I mentioned the blood reserve as well. Skin can hold up to 5% of our blood in our bodies, and so that acts as a important function as well. And I already kind of mentioned this with the protection, but it will get rid of waste in our bodies. So let's talk about the different parts of the skin. So here I have listed the main parts of the skin. You can see at the top here we have the epidermis layer. This is made up of stratified squamous cells. Remember, that's epithelial tissue. So there's many layers, and we're going to get into those in just a second. And then we have the dermis tissue below that. This is made of connective tissue. Actually, there's two different types of connective tissue. You can see this is where it holds a lot of the blood vessels, the nerves, the hair, those type of things are found within the dermis. And then we have glands. We have sweat glands here, and then we also have sebaceous glands or oil glands that you can find as well. And then hair. So those are the main parts within the integumentary system. So as I said before, the epidermis is made up of many layers of stratified squamous cells. So we have several different layers here, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them right now. So if we start at the top here, we have the stratum corneum. This is actually made up of dead cell layers. So there's about 20 or 30 layers that are all dead layers. So actually, when we look at each other, we're actually looking at dead cells on the outside. And these are the ones that will flake off, especially in the winter, you know, when your skin gets dry and you can flake off skin. These are the layers that are coming off. And so these are going to be waterproof. They're going to be the most outer layer. They're going to be waterproof, and it helps protect our bodies. And also, this is when so when we shave our skin, our hair, the skin doesn't bleed because there's no blood vessels. This is avascular. There's no blood vessels in here as well. Now, if you cut down into your skin and you bleed, then you've gotten through these layers and now are allowing the blood to come through. But this is going to be a dead layer of skin. The other layer I want to bring your attention to is the stratum basale. This is the basement membrane. It's the very bottom layer of the epidermis. This is going to be where melanin is found, and this is what gives our skin different colors. The amount of melanin will give us our different shades of our skin. This is going to be the deepest layer. This is also where mitosis takes place. Remember, mitosis is cell division, so it's making more of the layers. Because as these layers in the corneum are flaked off, then we need to have more skin that is replacing those layers. And so our skin is constantly going through mitosis in order to make more of itself. Now, we're going to go through the dermis. The dermis, actually, before we get into the dermis, have you ever thought about why you get blisters before? Blisters actually occur when there's a spot between the epidermis and dermis that separates, and then fluid is able to fill in that area to cause a blister. This area also causes our fingerprints. If you notice here that this layer is not flat. It has little bumps or little ridges in it. These ridges actually cause our fingerprints to take place. And so each of us has a unique combination of how these layers combine together, and that gives us our unique fingerprints. So let's talk about the dermis. The dermis is underneath the epidermis, and this is highly vascular, meaning that there's a lot of blood vessels here. Like I said before, there's a lot. You also find the different glands here. So you can find sweat glands, you can find those oil glands. Then the dermis is also made up of a lot of fibers. There's collagen fibers and there's elastic fibers. These fibroblasts are actually cells that create the fibers that will supply the dermis with their collagen fibers and elastic fibers. So let's talk about glands. There are two main types of glands within our skin. We have sweat glands and sebaceous, or also known as oil glands. There are two types of sweat glands. There's eccrine sweat glands, which produce true sweat, which is mostly water. You're going to find these many different places in the body, but there's higher concentrations on the soles of our hands, the soles of our feet, and also our forehead. Actually, I knew somebody that had their hands would sweat all the time, and they had surgery to a neural surgery where they went in to their nervous system, to near their spinal cord, and they did some surgery on the nerves that would go to their hands that would produce that sweat. Because you think about it, when you get older and you are in business, you shake hands with people a lot, and so she was really self-conscious about that and wanted to make sure that she didn't have that issue where she was shaking hands with people and always had sweaty hands. Then we have apocrine sweat glands. These are found in the armpits and also the genital region. They also produce true sweat, but they have also this fatty substance and proteins that are involved with that as well. So it's a slightly different type of sweat that's going to be produced. Then we have sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands are going to be your oil glands. This is a good thing because it can kill off bacteria, but it can, in other times, it's not good because it can also harbor bacteria. You're going to find these associated with hair follicles or also pores, and it's stimulated by hormones. So this is why typically during like teenage years there's more acne, because there's more oil, because there's just the testosterone and the estrogen, all those different hormones that are being revved up are stimulating those oil glands, and so there's a lot of oil that's being produced during that time period, so you see a lot more acne. These oil glands, or sebaceous glands, are found all over the body except for the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. So now let's talk about hair. So hair and nails are also part of the integumentary system. We're going to start with hair first. So the hair is made up of two parts. We have the hair shaft here, and then we have the root, or the hair bulb. Hair follicle bulb is down here. The hair itself is basically a flexible strand of dead cells that are created within the hair follicle. And they are, remember that there's an oil gland that's usually associated with that hair follicle. And that's where the oil comes out, and if you don't wash your hair for a while, you can have that oil build up on your hair, is because that oil gland is just feeding right into that hair follicle, and then therefore go on to the hair. The other thing is, so the hair follicle comes down from the extension of the epidermis here, and is where the hair will grow. There is a muscle that is associated with these hair follicles called the erector muscle, and this is what causes goosebumps. And so when we're cold, that muscle contracts and causes goosebumps to take place. And then it takes a little while for that muscle to relax again, so you can have that goosebump feeling for a little while afterwards. Nails are also part of the epidermis. They are a modified form of the epidermis, in that they are a clear protective covering as well. So let's talk about some hazards that can happen with our skin. First of all, we have burns. There are three main degrees of burns, but there are actually higher levels of burns that can take place. It all depends on how much of the skin is affected by the burn. First degree burn is just going to simply be in the epidermis. When you have a second degree burn, it's damaging down into the dermis. And when you have third degree burn, it's going all the way down through the dermis into the hypodermis layer. And you can get even further if you're getting into down to the bone or down to muscle. That can be a higher degree burn as well. The other main concern is skin cancer, and especially now with more knowledge about UV light and tanning beds and just the benefits of using sunscreen, we've seen changes in the amount of skin cell or skin cancer out there. There are different types of skin cancer. Some of them are more aggressive than others. My friend had a type that was not very aggressive, and in her young 20s, she had 3 spots. There's one up here, one over here, and then one back here that were removed. And luckily that she has not had any reoccurrences of that. Melanoma is probably the best known type of skin cancer, and that is the most aggressive type. We have the ABCD basically of looking at moles for skin cancer. I know I've had several moles removed because they've had a lot of these, they've been asymmetrical, they've had uneven edges, they've been two-toned, and they've had a large diameter. I've had 8 moles removed total, and because that they've had some of these signs, all of them came back benign, fortunately. Benign means that they're non-cancerous, malignant means that they're cancerous. And so I continue to watch some of my moles just to make sure that they are okay. So that's the end of our integumentary system, and let me know if you have any questions.